You are born in a private wing of the most expensive hospital in Manhattan, a floor reserved for people whose names make markets move. There are no other patients on this floor. There are no nurses who haven't signed a non-disclosure agreement. Outside the door, two men in dark suits stand with earpieces and no expressions. They are not Secret Service. They work for your father. Your father is not the president. Not yet. But he is something the president calls before making a decision. Yet he is a real estate titan, a media personality, a political kingmaker, a man who owns 43 properties across 12 states, whose face is on the side of buildings, whose name is a brand, a weapon, and a promise all at once. He has been on the cover of every magazine that matters and banned from half the countries that don't. He speaks in superlatives. Everything is the biggest, the best, the most tremendous. And tonight, in this hospital, his firstborn son has arrived, and within the hour, a press release is drafted. Not a birth announcement, a press release, because in this family, even a baby is a headline. Welcome to the Golden Cage, the one made of penthouse views and tabloid covers and a last name that opens every door, except the one that leads to a normal life. You grow up in a triplex penthouse 68 floors above the city. The living room has gold-plated fixtures, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a ceiling mural painted by an artist your father flew in from Italy and never paid. There is a grand piano no one plays. There are rooms you have never entered. The elevator opens directly into your home, and it requires a key that only 7 people in the world possess. Your childhood is luxury without warmth. You are raised by a rotating staff, a British nanny, a tutor from Princeton, and a bodyguard named Carl who drives you to school in an armored Cadillac and waits in the parking lot for 7 hours. Your mother is beautiful, distant, and always dressed for a camera that may or may not be there. Your father is a voice on the phone, a face on television, a presence that fills every room he has ever entered, even when he is not in it. At age 6, you attend your first gala. You wear a custom-made suit. You shake hands with senators. Yet a woman with diamonds on her neck kneels down and says, "You look just like your father." You smile because you have been taught to smile. You do not yet understand that looking like your father is not a compliment. It is a sentence. At age 8, you come home from school and find your father in the living room with 3 men you have never seen. They are not wearing suits. They are wearing the kind of clothes that say, "I don't need to impress you." Your father sees you, points to your room, and says, "Go." You go, but you hear the conversation through the vent. Numbers, names of cities, the phrase, "We own the zoning board." You don't understand it, but you remember it. You will understand it later. At age 10, your father takes you to one of his construction sites, not the finished ones with the gold letters, a raw one, steel beams and concrete dust and men in hard hats who stop talking when your father walks past. He puts his hand on your shoulder and says, "Yeah, everything you see was built because people believed in this name. The buildings are not the business. The name is the business. Protect the name. The name protects everything else." That night, you Google your last name for the first time. You find lawsuits, hundreds of them. Fraud allegations, unpaid contractors, tax investigations, a documentary you are not allowed to watch. You close the laptop. But something has shifted. The gold fixtures look different now, not like luxury. Like evidence. At 13, your education shifts. Your father introduces you to the fixer, a lawyer in his 60s who has represented the family for 30 years and has never lost a case, mostly because the cases never reach a courtroom. The fixer teaches you how the family actually works. He explains that your father does not build buildings. Not really. He builds perception. The family licenses its name to developers who build the actual structures. The name goes on the tower. And the family collects a fee, sometimes 30 million, sometimes more, without laying a single brick. It is not construction, it is branding. And branding, the fixer explains, is the most legal form of alchemy ever invented, turning reputation into revenue without creating anything tangible. He teaches you about shell companies, LLCs, registered in Delaware and Wyoming with names that mean nothing, designed to hold assets that cannot be traced. He shows you how a single property can be purchased through 7 layers of corporate structure so that no journalist, no regulator, and no ex-wife can determine who actually owns it. He teaches you the phrase plausible deniability and says it is the most important concept in American business. At 15, your father gives you your first role, a seat on the board of a hospitality company that manages 12 hotels bearing the family name. You do not manage the hotels. You attend quarterly meetings, sign documents, the fixer prepares, and learn to say, "I'm not involved in day-to-day operations," with a straight face. It is your first lesson in the family's core skill, being everywhere and responsible for nothing. At 16, you attend your first political fundraiser. It is held in your father's penthouse. 200 people pay $50,000 each to eat shrimp and stand near power. You watch your father work the room. A handshake here, a whisper there, a joke that makes a congressman laugh too hard. After the guests leave, your father sits in his leather chair and makes 4 phone calls. By morning, a zoning regulation in New Jersey has been quietly revised. No one will connect the two events. Oh, that is the point. At 17, you are sent to an elite boarding school in Connecticut. You use a different last name. Not legally changed, just socially adjusted. For 2 years, you are almost normal. You make a friend named Declan who wants to be a documentary filmmaker. You play lacrosse badly. You eat dining hall food. One night, Declan shows you a rough cut of a short film he's making about wealth inequality. One of the buildings in the background has your real last name on it in gold letters. You say nothing. You laugh at his jokes, and you feel something crack inside you, a wall between who you are here and what you are everywhere else. At 18, Declan's financial aid is mysteriously revoked. He leaves school mid-semester. You make 1 phone call to the fixer. Did we do this? Silence. Then, your father thought the friendship was a liability. You never speak to Declan again. You return to the tower. At 19, you enter the family business officially. Not the real estate, the political operation. Your father has decided to run for office, not because he believes in public service, but because the presidency is the ultimate brand extension. Your job is to be the son, the good one, the one who stands behind him at rallies and smiles and says, "My father is a great man," into microphones held by people who already know the answer they want. At 20, you manage a voter outreach initiative that is publicly about community engagement and privately about data collection. You learn that the campaign does not need voters to love your father. It needs voters to fear the alternative. Fear is cheaper than love, more reliable, and easier to manufacture. You sit in a room with consultants who use the word narrative, the way generals use the word strategy, as a weapon. At 21, your father wins. The night of the victory, yet you stand on a stage in front of 40,000 people. Confetti falls, music plays. Your father raises your hand like you are a prize. The crowd chants your last name, and you feel nothing, not pride, not joy. A vast, hollow nothing, like standing inside a building with no floors. At 22, a journalist contacts you directly. She has documents, financial records showing that a family foundation meant for veterans' charities was used to purchase a portrait of your father and to settle a private lawsuit. The documents are real. You know because you have seen them in the fixer's office. You do not respond to the journalist. Instead, you call the fixer. Within 2 weeks, the journalist's editor receives a call from the family's media company threatening to pull advertising. Yet the story runs anyway, buried on page 14, stripped of its sharpest details. You learn that you cannot kill a story, but you can break its legs. At 23, the first betrayal. A senior advisor, a man who has been with your father since the first campaign, writes a book. An insider tell-all. It describes meetings you attended, decisions you witnessed, conversations you thought were private. Your father does not rage. He simply says, "Yeah, I'll handle it." You coordinate a media blitz. Surrogates on every channel calling the author a liar, a disgruntled employee, a fraud. The book sells 2 million copies. But the narrative is muddied. Truth and accusation become indistinguishable. That, you learn, is the real victory. Not proving innocence, but making guilt unprovable. At 24, your father's approval ratings collapse. Investigations multiply. Subpoenas arrive weekly. The tower, the actual building where you grew up, is surrounded by protesters every day. You watch from 68 floors up. The people below look small. You wonder if they always did. At 25, you stand in the fixer's office at 2 a.m. He hands you a folder. Inside is a plan, a strategy for your father's post office life. New media company, new political movement, new revenue streams, and at the center of it, a name, yours. Not your father's, yours. He's too damaged, the fixer says. The name needs a new face. You're the face now. You look at the folder. You look at the door. You could walk out. You could disappear. Change your name. Move to a country where no one knows the brand. Become no one. Or you could open the folder, learn the plan, and become the next version of everything you swore you would never be. You open the folder. Here is what they never tell you about Dynasty. It is not inherited like wealth, and it is inherited like debt. You do not choose to carry the name chooses to carry you, and it carries you to exactly the place it needs you to be, which is the place you would never go on your own. You were raised to believe you were being given an empire. In reality, you were being given a role in a performance that started before you were born and will continue after you are gone. The penthouse is not a home, it is a set. The name is not an identity, it is a script. And every room you enter, every hand you shake, every smile you deliver is a scene in a show that cannot be canceled because too many people are paying to watch. The golden cage does not need locks. It needs cameras. It needs headlines. It needs 40,000 people chanting your last name until the sound replaces whatever name you would have chosen for yourself. You sit in the penthouse, 68 floors above a city that loves you and hates you in equal measure. The television is on. Your face is on the screen, and the person on the screen looks like you, sounds like you, but is not you. It is the name. It has always been the name, and the name never lets go.